My name is Pascal. Today we are going to do a buy guide on the Rogue RM3 rack, which I personally think is the best starter option from Rogue you can possibly get. Most people, including me, will have a tendency to think too big for their first rack and tend towards an RM6 or RM4, but actually an RM3 is plenty and leaves you money in your budget to get some nice accessories and making your gym a bit more functional rather than having a big cage. So please follow the links in the description box below or the other playlists I have here on YouTube for more detail on other options, and let's get into the details. This is me standing in my RM4 rack, which is the deeper version of the two. Both are 4-post racks, and I'm personally 185 centimeters tall and 100 kg heavy. So powerlifting wise, I would be considered a heavyweight, or even weightlifting wise. And you can see, like, I have still pretty much space in this frame here. So don't think that you can't have some plates stored on the rack here and not move freely in an RM3. I personally do think you can. So downsize and then maybe think about what you can do with the budget that is left over, like buying a Landmine, or buying more storage pins, you know, all the stuff that actually makes the rack more functional rather than getting too big with the space. Check out my training for the journey playlist if you want to see how I'm moving in this rack under load. But to be honest, I'm not alone with this opinion that the RM4 and RM6 might be a bit big for a home gym, and an RM3 would more than suffice. There's only one exception I would make for the RM3, and that is if you want to store the plates on the bottom and also deadlift inside the rack. Then maybe the RM3 could be a bit small and a bit tricky to move heavy weights in, because I used to deadlift inside the RM4, and whenever I was a bit wonky or if I had very high loads on it, then I would sometimes touch off the back here of the plates, and then I would tilt my entire body, which you don't necessarily want on a max attempt. So if for some reason you do have to deadlift inside the rack rather than outside the rack, then get the RM4 over the RM3, or store the plates on the top. I personally don't do that because I have small kids, and if these plates ever come loose for whatever reason, I don't want them to crash down from high wherever my small children are. That's why I'm storing them here. Of course, I'm also locking the gym, and I'm also putting collars on these stored plates whenever I'm ready. But that is why I don't like storing them on the top. The other thing is also, if you store them on top, it makes the rack more unstable. So that's just physics. You know, if you have more weight on the top than on the bottom, it's way more likely to swing once it gets going. So I would recommend storing the plates on the bottom. But if you get the RM3, move them up if you want to deadlift inside the rack, or deadlift outside the rack and place the plates on the bottom. So let's talk color for the Rogue RM3. The standard option in the EU and in the US is black. That is the oldest color that you can get from Rogue Fitness, so it's also the easiest for them to produce. In the US, you can actually order your racks made to order. So what that means is they get produced, they get colored, they get finished, and then they get sent to you. And most of the colors, bar 2, will cost you the same amount of money. The only exceptions from this are stainless steel and cerakity, and these two options cost more. The stainless steel costs considerable more because it's made of different steel. The cerakity costs just slightly more. Now on stainless steel, I think it's just for the people who want to show off, to be quite honest. And cerakity, that is an option, but only if you also use a cerakity barbell with it and bumper plates or competition plates. Cerakity is set to have easier dents in it and lose the collar easier if you put metal to it. So think about the other options in your basket when you're thinking cerakity and stainless steel. So now with the Irish flag behind me, a few comments on color options for Rogue in Europe. And thanks to Michele on the Rogue RM4 buy guide to actually ask a question there and raise awareness that the pricing in the EU is a little different. When you want color options in Europe, you actually have to pay more when you want something else from black. Now, my personal explanation for that would be that Rogue can't do the made-to-order model like in the US. In the US, the production sites for Rogue are in Columbus. So that means you order on the website, then it goes directly to the production line, and then it gets just coated and sent. Now, in Europe, unfortunately, you have one transport stop in between. So the production has somehow to get from Columbus over to Belgium, where the central warehouse for distribution for Rogue is. And black is just selling a lot more than other colors. So that is possibly why black is cheaper in Europe than any other color options. Because for black, it is easier to break down the cost of the container shipment on each different, on the black color, and basically just zero it out. Whereas if you have a container and in that container is only one blue, or you especially shipping the blue one over, then you have to account for that transport cost, for that extra transport cost. And that is why I think that the other color options in Europe are just more expensive, because Rogue has a harder time to ship them directly to your doorstep or to ship them in bulk, because there's less demand than for the black ones. The next option to choose for your Rogue RM3 rack is the height. Now you will have 90, 100 and 108 inches. Personally, I'm using a 90 inch, but if I had a redo on this, I would get as tall a rack as I could possibly fit. It's not that much extra money, and if you think you want to go lower, you can always install the cross members a bit deeper. Actually, one of my German followers asked me that question, and it's absolutely no problem to just get these cross members and then adjust them a bit lower if you think it's too high. Now for me, I have the 90 option because in my first house I couldn't fit anything that was taller. I can't do any kipping pull-ups with this really, and also when I want to do any kind of knee raises or kind of core work where I have to hang from the rack, it's not great with my 185 centimeters. Now that being said, if you can fit something that's taller, then go for the 108 option and you have plenty of headspace. Just make sure that you actually check the ceiling for any obstructions that might be in the way to install the rack, or in the path of the barbell, because that actually protrudes from the sides, including the plates that you might be putting on. Because you will kick yourself if you get a rack that is tall and then you've overlooked an air conditioning or some kind of mechanic for the garage gate, or anything else that is already in the garage / home gym installed on the ceilings, and then you either have to cut apart the rack or you have to do a big deinstallation, reinstallation and moving of something very big and clunky. So think ahead when you're buying, but then buy as tall as you can possibly get for the RM3. Next option to choose for your RM3 is the finish of the nuts and bolts. Now you have the choice between bright zinc or just black. This is the bright zinc finish. Now, to be honest, it doesn't really matter which one you're getting, and just match it up with whatever color you are getting, what you think looks best. In terms of design, I've learned somewhere that contrast is always a good one to go for. So if you go for black, maybe go for the bright zinc to be happy. But that is just me, and apparently design theory, you know, whatever you like best for your rack, go for it. The next choice you have to make for your RM3 is the rear cross member, which you see right above me. Now you have three options for those. Most people will either go for the nameplate or for a pull-up bar. I personally would say that the beam with gusset is the best option if you get a pull-up bar in the front. Now, why am I saying that? Well, this nameplate mainly gets in the way and then you can't really do anything in the back of the rack in terms of attachments, working with the bands there, doing some pull-ups or installing a crown pull-up bar or some kind of grips that are also available from Rogue. So basically you're limiting the options of exercises you're doing by getting the nameplate. So if you have no reason to show the world that you are using Rogue Fitness, then maybe steer clear from the nameplate and the most expensive option. Of course, if you want to get dedication to your wife or to yourself by getting a custom nameplate for Rogue in the US, also these customizations in Europe are rather limited, and I've already explained how that whole made-to-order process works, and that therefore that isn't available in Europe. But if you are in the US and you want a custom nameplate for your gym or for your local team, well then go ahead and get the nameplate to represent. But for most home gyms or garage gyms, to be honest, you're losing actually functionality to pay more to advertise for Rogue. Now, for me, it makes sense because I have a YouTube channel and, you know, I want to build a following. But if you're not in that kind of bracket, then why pay more to have less functionality and go for the beam with gusset? The next option to choose are the Jacobs, and this really depends on what kind of barbell you are getting. Now, what I have on here is the Rogue Ohio Power Barbell with aggressive knurling. So if you get anything with aggressive knurling, you might want to actually get the 1-inch Jacobs or even the 2-inch Jacobs. Now, why am I saying that? If you can see here from the side, it has already eaten quite into the Jacob here. Now, I don't see any kind of loss of the knurling here itself because the barbell is more powerful than this Jacob. But if you want to avoid any of this kind of metal on metal action, especially on the bench press, then go for the 2-inch Jacobs from Monster, or at least the 1-inch ones. Of course, if you're not getting the barbell with very aggressive knurling, and if you're mainly doing clean and jerks or no bench presses at all, fair enough, then just keep the standards in and save yourself the money. But otherwise, the upgrade is worth the while. Last decision to make for your Rogue RM3 are the safeties. Now what you see here are the Rogue flip down safeties. They are only available with the RM4 and the RM6. If you want to know more, then check out the RM4 and RM6 buy guides that I have here and their comment sections, because there are other people who already bought these racks, and I think they're really informative discussions for you to make your ultimate buy decision. Now for the RM3, I will say something out of character for me. I would actually recommend the safety straps with the RM3 rather than the pin and pipe system. Of course, it always is up to you. But the pin and pipe system takes longer to adjust. If you're buying a half rack, it's also very likely that you're using it for a home gym use or a garage gym use. So it's very unlikely that the safety straps will be stolen. Now, the only thing that I really don't like about safety straps is they are not great, for, in my opinion, for any type of pin presses, also for pin and paused squats. You know, anything where basically the barbell has to rest on the straps themselves. And also the straps are easy to adjust in the wrong way. So what do I mean by that? The wrong way is that you have one side of the straps higher and the other one lower, or the other way around rather than parallel to the ground. And this is just an easier mistake to make with the straps than with the flip down safeties or with the pin and pipe system. With the flip down safeties, it's nearly impossible to do that. Basically, it is impossible because you can't flip them in when the holes are misaligned. With the pin and pipe system, you can still do that, but you know, you will notice when the two holes are misaligned when you're using the pin and pipes. But for the Rogue RM3, I do think in terms of convenience, and because you're probably already in a confined space anyway, so you might want to be able to click the safety straps in and out quick to get in and out of the rack, then okay, get the safety straps with the RM3 rather than the pin and pipe system. But that is really the only exception out of the Rogue portfolio, I personally think. When we're talking Rogue RM3, we also have to do a quick comparison between Monster and Monster Lite. And personally, I think you're better off getting the Monster series than the Monster Lite series because it has seen a lot more love from the engineering department from Rogue lately than the Echo Infinity and Monster Lite series. And I also foresee that that will be for the future to come because these units sell at a higher price. In the past, there was a considerable price gap and quite an uplift for getting the color on the rack. So you could actually think about getting a colored Monster Lite versus a black Monster. But especially in the US, the process has been refined and the price gap for getting color on your rack actually has shrunk. So I think that is not really that much of an argument anymore. So that's why I'm saying get the smallest Monster rack and then maybe upgrade in the future and still benefit from all the engineering upgrades that might be coming down 3-5 years in the line in the future, rather than going Monster Lite and then kind of corner yourself for the future for any upgrades because you just have to wait longer, or maybe they don't even trickle down at all to the Monster Lite series. Especially when you are intending to get more upgrades to your gym over time. Of course, if your gym is more of a big bang, I buy everything at once kind of approach, which often is unlikely with home gym and garage gyms, then you can also look into maybe the Echo and Infinity series and say, look, I just don't need all of the other bells and whistles. I don't care what Rogue is going to do in the future and save therefore a bit of money. But all in all, I think getting the smallest base in the Monster series from Rogue is a smart move for starting out your home gym or garage gym, and that's also why I'm thinking that the RM3 is one of the best starter options from Rogue you can get. So now that we've concluded all of the options for your Rogue RM3 for buying it from this website, then let's talk a bit of accessory. So you definitely should add 4 storage pins to your basket to store your plates, because the storage pins don't come with a rack for standard. 4 long storage pins will be more than enough. That's what I'm using here. You don't need 6. Next thing to talk about would be the LT1 lever arms, which many people are looking at. Now, if you are getting an RM3, I personally would discourage that purchase, and if you have that money left over, then get a Landmine 2.0 and an extra barbell instead. Now, why am I saying that? It costs about the same, it is easier to use and moves in more directions and is therefore more functional. And also the RM3 has a rather smaller footprint than the RM6 and RM4. So I would suggest that you will have more problems with balance on the rack and with definitely having it to bolt down to the ground, especially if you get the long LT1 lever arms. If you still wanted to get lever arms with the RM3, also think about that actually the inside of the rack is shortened, so you can't actually get the long ones and install them inside the rack. And even with the short lever arms, you probably will have some problems if that works at all. So definitely check with customer service from Rogue whether the RM3 is suited for the shortened LT1 arms before you put them in your basket, and whether these two can be installed together. Because, you know, it's better to ask up front rather than ordering the whole thing and then it doesn't fit inside the rack, because I personally haven't tested this and I also haven't seen anyone yet who has the RM3 plus short lever arms combination, so I can't really comment on whether it actually is going to work or not, so best to ask Rogue. All in all, that leads me to that, especially for the RM3, but also kind of generally, you might be better off buying a Landmine and a second barbell with it rather than the LT1 arms. That concludes my buy guide on the RM3. If you have any questions, then please put them in the comments section below. Apart from that, I would like you to like and subscribe and tell your friends about my channel, and have a nice day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.